Timed hill climbs were one of the earliest forms of racing. According to history, the first race in Southern California was a hill climb. In America, there's one hill climb that happens to be the oldest continuously running racing event in the country. We all know it's called Pikes Peak and it's in Colorado. One family decided to call this event and mountain their own. The family, as we all know, is the Unser family. By the time 1971 had come around, they had won 26 of the 47 Pikes Peak hill climbs held since 1916. Our honoree tonight, Bobby Unser, went on to win 13 Pikes Peak hill climbs himself. Bobby is one of the 4 sons of Jerry and Mary Unser. She actually did have a name, not Mom. His mom. Everybody knew her as Mom, but her name was Mary, of course. Of course, that's not all Bobby is known for. How about 3-time Indy 500 champion, 2-time national champion, 35 career IndyCar victories. That's 4th on the all-time list. 2-time winner of the International Race of Champions. 49 career pole positions. That's 3rd on the all-time list. Indy 500 Hall of Fame member. International Motorsports Hall of Fame member. 8 500-mile victories. Indy 3 times, California 500 4 times, and the Pocono 500 1 time. 1989, inducted into Aruba's Legends of Racing. 1990, inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame. 1990, inducted into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame. 1993, won the inaugural Jaguar Fast Masters Racing Series. How many people remember that? Boy, what a great series that was, huh? The Crash Masters, as they do it, right? 1993, Bonneville Salt Flats set a new land speed record, 223.709. Or as they say, an okay speed on the back straightaway in Indianapolis. 1994, inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame in Novi, Michigan. 1999, Indy 500 Front Row Award, 9-time Front Row qualifier at the Indy 500. Michigan, that's right, Michigan International Speedway renamed the pole for Bobby Unser's 7-time pole qualifying record. It's now known as the Bobby Unser Pole Award. And as a side note, the Unser family first went to Pikes Peak in 1926. That was the same year that Harry Houdini and Rudolph Valentino died. It was the year that Route 66 was created. So tonight we get a chance to learn more about the man himself. Of course, Bobby never being short on commentary. Would you all please help me welcome Bobby Unser to the stage?
Ladies and gentlemen, Bobby Unser, this year's Legends of Riverside.
I guess I'm supposed to sit down and talk with you there, right?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do here. A lot in this book. I hope you remember what you said.
I haven't read that in a long time.
1979.
2 books I've done since that, and I don't even know how to spell.
Well, we'll get into that. Okay, first let's go back to the beginning, Bobby, and start with your father and how he molded you and your brothers. And I mean, did you guys ever consider anything other than racing?
No, we were too lazy to work, so racing was the only thing we could do. We were born and raised as mechanics on Highway 66, and that's what we did. And I started racing when I was 15 years of age. I was going to school then, and at 16 years of age, and these were super modified cars, which originated in Albuquerque. And at 16 years of age, I won the whole Southwestern Championship, which included Arizona, West Texas, and basically Colorado, and New Mexico. And so...
Was that claiming you were 16, or were you driving as an older person, or you legally driving at 16?
No, they didn't really care in Albuquerque. Honest to goodness, people, things were a lot easier then. when he won, but Albuquerque didn't adhere to it because everybody should agree it was an insurance problem, for example, because they didn't have any.
Obviously, no attorneys in Albuquerque back then.
No, it just didn't exist. But when I traveled around to other places in the country, Arizona and stuff, I had false birth certificates. Now, how the heck is a 16, 17-year-old kid saying he's 22 or 23? But that's what we did.
Your dad had a Ford car repair service. I'm looking at the photos, and I'm thinking, Albuquerque back in that day had Ford cars. I mean, that had to be somewhat rare in that area. Well, I mean, what Ford cars would you find in Albuquerque back then?
Well, it wasn't Albuquerque, it was Highway 66, because that was the heart of the United States, out California to Chicago. And so they couldn't make it from Los Angeles to Chicago without breaking down, and Albuquerque was the perfect place to break down.
Yeah. There's a long hill as you go west out of Albuquerque. Yeah, exactly. My dad told me all about it when he came out west. What was your father's influence and your uncles? I mean, how did they get involved in racing?
Well, they were, of course, came from Colorado Springs and Pikes Peak. And Uncle Louis became known as the King of the Mountain. The Depression years hit in their era, so things were upside down making a living. And that's how we ended up going to Colorado. My dad couldn't make a living in Colorado Springs. He tried the garage business, even went down to owning a restaurant, didn't work. So Albuquerque was the hub for the Southwest. Highway 85 went from Mexico to Canada, and of course 66 went from Chicago to California here.
Makes sense. Okay, tell me about each of your brothers. I mean, you guys were all very close and still are, surviving, now. But, you obviously had differences. I remember back in the early 70s, some unnamed sports writer had written something that said that you and Al were having a problem. And you guys were pretty upset about that, as I remember. You remember the instance?
Yes, his name was Nick Holgate, wrote for the LA Times, going to sue the guy. And Al and I both joined together, brought our attorney back to California, right during the California 500, one of them, and told the newspaper either fire that guy or we're going to have to sue the newspaper because it was totally untrue. That was all caused by George McNulty, who probably worked for Cornelli right there.
But I mean, you guys, all in all, you had your differences, but give us a little insight into the relationship of the brothers.
Well, it was, like, we were very close. Jerry, I remember my first Riverside race. I drove with my brother Jerry out here in the stock car. That would have been in 1957. And Jerry had two cars. It was the end of the year. And he wanted to use up the year of the car. It was Ford Motor Company deal. So he let me drive the second car. And this means you're close brothers. And I sat on the pole with the car and led most of the race. They ended up finishing second. Jerry won the race. But that's brothers. And of course, I was immediately fired afterwards and had to go back to Albuquerque and go back to work again. Because we had no budgets to continue the racing training. But we were still family. Louis was the mechanic on both cars. And Jerry was the owner. And we were family racing.
So, with your brother, you would team up with him. Do you think you would have been a good teammate if you'd ever gone on a Formula One team in Europe? How do you think that would have worked out?
No, we would have not been good teammates, period. In other words, it's okay if I'm driving for Jerry, and I needed a kickstart in my career. I was very young, and Jerry was the national stock car champion in '57, so he was just helping his brother out.